Reincarnation, delivered in Memphis on January 19, 1894. Reported in Appeal Avalanche. Swami Vivekananda, the beturbaned and yellow robed monk, lectured again last night to a fair sized and appreciative audience at the La Salette Academy on 3rd Street. The subject was transmigration of the soul, or metempsychosis. Possibly, Vivekananda never appeared to greater advantage than in this role, so to speak. Metempsychosis is one of the most widely accepted beliefs among the Eastern races, and one that they are ever ready to defend, at home or abroad. As Kananda said, many of you do not know that it is one of the oldest religious doctrines of all the old religions. It was known among the Pharisees, among the Jews, among the first fathers of the Christian church, and was a common belief among the Arabs. And it lingers still with the Hindus and the Buddhists. This state of things went on until the days of science, which is merely a contemplation of energies. Now, you Western people believe this doctrine to be subversive of morality. In order to have a full survey of the argument, its logical and metaphysical features, we will have to go over all the ground. All of us believe in a moral governor of this universe, yet nature reveals to us, instead of justice, injustice. One man is born under the best of circumstances. Throughout his entire life, circumstances come ready made to his hands, all conducive to happiness and a higher order of things. Another is born, and at every point his life is at variance with that of his neighbor. He dies in depravity, exiled from society. Why so much partiality in the distribution of happiness? The theory of metempsychosis reconciles this disharmonious chord in your common beliefs. Instead of making us immoral, this theory gives us the idea of justice. Some of you say it is God's will. This is no answer. It is unscientific. Everything has a cause. The sole cause and whole theory of causation being left with God makes him a most immoral creature. But materialism is as much illogical as the other. So far as we go, perception, causation, involves all things. Therefore, this doctrine of the transmigration of the soul is necessary on these grounds. Here we are all born. Is this the first creation? Is creation something coming out of nothing? Analyzed completely, this sentence is nonsense. It is not creation, but manifestation. A something cannot be the effect of a cause that is not. If I put my finger in the fire, the burn is a simultaneous effect. And I know that the cause of the burn was the action of my placing my finger in contact with the fire. And as in the case of nature, there never was a time when nature did not exist, because the cause has always existed. But for argument's sake, admit that there was a time when there was no existence. Where was all this mass of matter? To create something new would be the introduction of so much more energy into the universe. This is impossible. Old things can be recreated, but there can be no addition to the universe. No mathematical demonstration could be made that would have this theory of metempsychosis. According to logic, hypothesis and theory must not be believed. But my contention is that no better hypothesis has been forwarded by the human intellect to explain the phenomena of life. I met with a peculiar incident while on a train leaving the city of Minneapolis. There was a cowboy on the train. He was a rough sort of a fellow and a Presbyterian of the blue-nose type. He walked up and asked me where I was from. I told him India. "What are you?" he said. "Hindu," I replied. "Then you must go to hell," he remarked. I told him of this theory, and after my explaining it, he said he had always believed in it because he said that one day when he was chopping a log, his little sister came out in her clothes and said that she used to be a man. That is why he believed in the transmigration of souls. The whole basis of the theory is this: if a man's actions be good, he must be a higher being, and vice versa. There is another beauty in this theory: the moral motive it supplies. What is done is done. It says, that it were done better. Do not put your finger in the fire again. Every moment is a new chance. Vivekananda spoke in this strain for some time, and he was frequently applauded. Swami Vivekananda will lecture again this afternoon at 4 o'clock at La Salette Academy on the manners and customs of India. Comparative Theology, delivered in Memphis on January 21, 1894. reported in Appeal Avalanche. Comparative theology was the subject of a discourse last night by Swami Vivekananda at the Young Men's Hebrew Association Hall. It was the blue ribbon lecture of the series, and no doubt increased the general admiration the people of this city entertain for the learned gentleman. Heretofore, Vivekananda has lectured for the benefit of one charity-worthy object or another, and it can be safely said that he has rendered them material aid. Last night, however, he lectured for his own benefit. The lecture was planned and sustained by Mr. Hu L. Brinkley, one of Vivekananda's warmest friends and most ardent admirers. In the neighborhood of 200 gathered at the hall last night to hear the eminent Easterner for the last time in this city. The first question the speaker asserted in connection with the subject was, "Can there be such a distinction between religions as their creeds would imply?" He asserted that no differences existed now, and he retraced the line of progress made by all religions and brought it back to the present day. He showed that such variance of opinion must of necessity have existed with primitive man in regard to the idea of God, but that as the world advanced step by step in a moral and intellectual way, the distinctions became more and more indistinct, until finally it had faded away entirely, and now there was one all-prevalent doctrine, that of an absolute existence. "No savage," said the speaker, "can be found who does not believe in some kind of a God." Modern science does not say whether it looks upon this as a revelation or not. Love among savage nations is not very strong. They live in terror. To their superstitious imaginations is pictured some malignant spirit, before the thought of which they quake in fear and terror. Whatever he likes, he thinks, will please the evil spirit. What will pacify him, he thinks, will appease the wrath of the spirit. To this end, he labors even against his fellow savage. The speaker went on to show by historical facts that the savage man went from ancestral worship to the worship of elephants, and later to gods, such as the god of thunder and storms. Then the religion of the world was polytheism. The beauty of the sunrise, the grandeur of the sunset, the mystifying appearance of the star-bedecked skies, and the weirdness of thunder and lightning impressed primitive man with a force that he could not explain, and suggested the idea of a higher and more powerful being controlling the infinities that flocked before his gaze, said Vivekananda. Then came another period, the period of monotheism. All the gods disappeared and blended into one, the God of gods, the ruler of the universe. Then the speaker traced the Aryan race up to that period, where they said, "We live and move in God. He is motion." Then there came another period known to metaphysics as the period of pantheism. This race rejected polytheism and monotheism and the idea that God was the universe, and said, "The soul of my soul is the only true existence. My nature is my existence and will expand to me." Vivekananda then took up Buddhism. He said that they neither asserted nor denied the existence of a God. Buddha would simply say, when his counsel was sought, "You see misery, then try to lessen it." To a Buddhist, misery is ever present, and society measures the scope of his existence. Mohammedans, he said, believed in the Old Testament of the Hindu, Hebrew, and the New Testament of the Christian. They do not like the Christians, for they say they are heretics and teach man worship. Muhammad ever forbade his followers having a picture of himself. "The next question that arises," said he, "are these religions true, or are some of them true and some of them false? They have all reached one conclusion, that of an absolute and infinite existence. Unity is the object of religion. The multiple of phenomena that is seen at every hand is only the infinite variety of unity. An analysis of religion shows that man does not travel from fallacy to truth, but from a lower truth to a higher truth. A man brings in a coat to a lot of people. Some say the coat does not fit them. Well, you get out. You can't have a coat. Ask one Christian minister what is the matter with all the other sects that are opposed to his doctrines and dogmas, and he will answer, "Oh, they are not Christians." But we have better instruction than these. Our own natures, love, and science, they teach us better. Like the eddies to a river, take them away and stagnation follows. Kill the difference in opinions, and it is the death of thought. Motion is necessity. Thought is the motion of the mind, and when that ceases, death begins. If you put a simple molecule of air in the bottom of a glass of water, it at once begins in a struggle to join the infinite atmosphere above. So it is with the soul. It is struggling to regain its pure nature and to free itself from this material body. It wants to regain its own infinite expansion. This is everywhere the same. Among Christians, Buddhists, Mohammedans, agnostic, or priest, the soul is struggling. A river flows 1,000 miles down the circuitous mountain side to where it joins the seas, and a man is standing there to tell it to go back and start anew and assume a more direct course. That man is a fool. You are a river that flows from the heights of Zion. I flow from the lofty peaks of the Himalayas. I don't say to you, go back and come down as I did. You are wrong. That is more wrong than foolish. Stick to your beliefs. The truth is never lost. Books may perish, nations may go down in a crash, but the truth is preserved and is taken up by some man and handed back to society, which proves a grand and continuous revelation of God. Buddhism, the religion of the light of Asia, delivered in Detroit on March 19, 1894, reported in Detroit Tribune. Vivekananda lectured to an audience of about 80, according to the journal 500. At the auditorium last night upon Buddhism, the religion of the light of Asia. Honorable Don M. Dickinson introduced him to the audience. Who shall say that this system of religion is divine and that doomed? Asked Mr. Dickinson in his introductory remarks. Who shall draw the mystic line? Vivekananda reviewed at length the early religions of India. He told of the great slaughter of animals on the altar of sacrifice, of Buddha's birth and life, of his puzzling questions to himself over the causes of creation and the reasons for existence, of the earnest struggle of Buddha to find the solution of creation and life, of the final result. Buddha, he said, stood head and shoulders above all other men. He was one, he said, of whom his friends or enemies could never say that he drew a breath or ate a crumb of bread but for the good of all. He never preached transmigration of the soul, said Kananda, except he believed one soul was to its successor like the wave of the ocean that grew and died away, leaving not to the succeeding wave but its force. He never preached that there was a God, nor did he deny there was a God. Why should we be good? His disciples asked of him. Because, he said, you inherited good. Let you in your turn leave some heritage of good to your successors. Let us all help the onward march of accumulated goodness for goodness' sake. He was the first prophet. He never abused anyone or arrogated anything to himself. He believed in our working out our own salvation in religion. I can't tell you, he said on his deathbed, nor anyone. Depend not on anyone. Work out your own religion, salvation. He protested against the inequality of man and man, or of man and beast. All life was equal, he preached. He was the first man to uphold the doctrine of prohibition in liquors. Be good and do good, he said. If there is a God, you have him by being good. If there is no God, being good is good. He is to be blamed for all he suffers. He is to be praised for all his good. He was the first who brought the missionaries into existence. He came as a savior to the downtrodden millions of India. They could not understand his philosophy, but they saw the man and his teachings, and they followed him. In conclusion, Kananda said that Buddhism was the foundation of the Christian religion, that the Catholic Church came from Buddhism. The Science of Yoga. Delivered at Tucker Hall, Alameda, California on April 13, 1900. The old Sanskrit word yoga is defined as chitta vritti nirodha. It means that yoga is the science that teaches us to bring the chitta under control from the state of change. The chitta is the stuff from which our minds are made and which is being constantly churned into waves by external and internal influences. Yoga teaches us how to control the mind so that it is not thrown out of balance into wave forms. What does this mean? To the student of religion, almost 99% of the books and thoughts of religion are mere speculations. One man thinks religion is this and another that. If one man is more clever than the others, he overthrows their speculations and starts a new one. Men have been studying new religious systems for the last 2000, 4000 years. How long exactly, nobody knows. When they could not reason them out, they said, believe. If they were powerful, they forced their beliefs. This is going on even now. But there are a set of people who are not entirely satisfied with this sort of thing. Is there no way out? They ask. You do not speculate that way in physics, chemistry, and mathematics. Why cannot the science of religion be like any other science? They proposed this way. If such a thing as the soul of man really exists, if it is immortal, if God really exists as the ruler of this universe, he must be known here, and all that must be realized in your own consciousness. The mind cannot be analyzed by any external machine. Supposing you could look into my brain while I am thinking, you would only see certain molecules interchanged. You could not see thought, consciousness, ideas, images. You would simply see the mass of vibrations, chemical and physical changes. From this example, we see that this sort of analysis would not do. Is there any other method by which the mind can be analyzed as mind? If there is, then the real science of religion is possible. The science of Raja Yoga claims there is such a possibility. We can all attempt it and succeed to a certain degree. There is this great difficulty. In external sciences, the object is comparatively easy to observe. The instruments of analysis are rigid, and both are external. But in the analysis of the mind, the object and the instruments of analysis are the same thing. The subject and the object become one. External analysis will go to the brain and find physical and chemical changes. It would never succeed in answering the questions, what is the consciousness? What is your imagination? Where does this vast mass of ideas you have come from, and where do they go? We cannot deny them. They are facts. I never saw my own brain. I have to take for granted I have one. But man can never deny his own conscious imagination. The great problem is ourselves. Am I the long chain I do not see, one piece following the other in rapid succession but quite unconnected? Am I such a state of consciousness, forever in a flux? Or am I something more than that, a substance, an entity, what we call the soul? In other words, has man a soul or not? Is he a bundle of states of consciousness without any connection, or is he a unified substance? That is the great controversy. If we are merely bundles of consciousness, such a question as immortality would be merely delusion. On the other hand, if there is something in me which is a unit, a substance, then of course I am immortal. The unit cannot be destroyed or broken into pieces. Only compounds can be broken up. All religions except Buddhism believe and struggle in some way or other to reach such a substance. Buddhism denies the substance and is quite satisfied with that. It says this business about God, the soul, immortality, and all that, do not vex yourselves with such questions. But all the other religions of the world cling to this substance. They all believe that the soul is the substance in man in spite of all the changes, that God is the substance which is in the universe. They all believe in the immortality of the soul. These are speculations. Who is to decide the controversy between the Buddhists and the Christians? Christianity says there is a substance that will live forever. The Christian says, my Bible says so. The Buddhist says, I do not believe in your book. The question is, are we the substance, the soul, or this subtle matter, the changing, billowing mind? Our minds are constantly changing. Where is the substance within? We do not find it. I am now this and now that. I will believe in the substance if for a moment you can stop these changes. Of course, all the beliefs in God and heaven are little beliefs of organized religions. Any scientific religion never proposes such things. Yoga is the science that teaches us to stop the chitta, the mind stuff, from getting into these changes. Suppose you succeed in leading the mind to a perfect state of yoga. That moment you have solved the problem. You have known what you are. You have mastered all the changes. After that, you may let the mind run about. But it is not the same mind anymore. It is perfectly under your control. No more like wild horses that dash you down. You have seen God. This is no longer a matter of speculation. There is no more Mr. So-and-so, no more books or Vedas, or controversy of preachers, or anything. You have been yourself. I am the substance beyond all these changes. I am not the changes. If I were, I could not stop them. I can stop the changes, and therefore I can never be the changes. This is the proposition of the science of yoga. We do not like these changes. We do not like changes at all. Every change is being forced upon us. In our country, bullocks carry a yoke on their shoulders, which is connected by a pole with an oil press. From the yoke projects a piece of wood, to which is tied a bundle of grass, just far enough to tempt the bullock, but he cannot reach it. He wants to eat the grass and goes a little farther, thereby turning the oil press. We are like these bullocks, always trying to eat the grass and stretching our necks to reach it. We go round and round this way. Nobody likes these changes, certainly not. All these changes are forced upon us. We cannot help it. Once we have put ourselves in the machine, we must go on and on. The moment we stop, there is greater evil than if we continued forward. Of course, misery comes to us. It is all misery because it is all unwilling. It is all forced. Nature orders us and we obey, but there is not much love lost between us and nature. All our work is an attempt to escape nature. We say we are enjoying nature. If we analyze ourselves, we find that we are trying to escape everything and invent ways to enjoy this and that. Nature is like the Frenchman who had invited an English friend and told him of his old wines in the cellar. He called for a bottle of old wine. It was so beautiful, and the light sparkled inside like a piece of gold. His butler poured out a glass, and the Englishman quietly drank it. The butler had brought in a bottle of castor oil. We are drinking castor oil all the time. We cannot help it. People in general are so reduced to machinery they do not even think. Just like cats, dogs, and other animals, they are also driven with the whip by nature. They never disobey, never think of it. But even they have some experience of life. Some, however, begin to question, what is this? What are all these experiences for? What is the self? Is there any escape? Any meaning to life? The good will die, the wicked will die, kings will die, and beggars will die. The great misery is death. All the time we are trying to avoid it. And if we die in a comfortable religion, we think we will see Johns and Jacks afterwards and have a good time. In your country, they bring Johns and Jacks down to show you in seances. I saw such people numbers of times and shook hands with them. Many of you may have seen them. They bang the piano and sing Beulah Land. America is a vast land. My home is on the other side of the world. I do not know where Beulah Land is. You will not find it in any geography. See our good, comfortable religion, the old, moth-eaten belief. Those people cannot think. What can be done for them? They have been eaten up by the world. There is nothing in them to think. Their bones have become hollow. Their brains are like cheese. I sympathize with them. Let them have their comfort. Some people are evidently very much comforted by seeing their ancestors from Beulah Land. One of these mediums offered to bring my ancestors down to me. I said, "Stop there. Do anything you like, but if you bring my ancestors, I don't know if I can restrain myself." The medium was very kind and stopped. In our country, when we begin to get worried by things, we pay something to the priests and make a bargain with God. For the time being, we feel comforted. Otherwise, we will not pay the priests. A little comfort comes, but it turns into reaction shortly. So again, misery comes. The same misery is here all the time. Your people in our country says, if you believe in our doctrine, you are safe. Our people among the lower classes believe in your doctrines. The only change is that they become beggars. But is that religion? It is politics, not religion. You may call it religion, dragging the word religion down to that sense, but it is not spiritual. Among thousands of men and women, a few are inclined to something higher than this life. The others are like sheep. Some among thousands try to understand things, to find a way out. The question is there a way out? If there is a way out, it is in the soul and nowhere else. The ways out from other sources have been tried enough, and all have been found wanting. People do not find satisfaction. The very fact that those myriads of theories and sects exist show that people do not find satisfaction. The science of yoga proposes this, that the one way out is through ourselves. We have to individualize ourselves. If there is any truth, we can realize it as our very essence. We will cease being driven about by nature from place to place. The phenomenal world is always changing to reach the changeless. That is our goal. We want to be that, to realize that absolute, the changeless reality. What is preventing us from realizing that reality? It is the fact of creation. The creative mind is creating all the time and gets mixed up with its own creation. But we must also remember that it is creation that discovered God. It is creation that discovered the absolute in every individual soul. Going back to our definition, yoga is stopping the chitta, the mind stuff, from getting into these changes. When all this creation has been stopped, if it is possible to stop it, then we shall see for ourselves what we are in reality. The uncreated, the one that creates, manifests itself. The methods of yoga are various. Some of them are very difficult. It takes long training to succeed. Some are easy. Those who have the perseverance and strength to follow it through attain to great results. Those who do not may take a simpler method and get some benefit out of it. As to the proper analysis of the mind, we see at once how difficult it is to grapple with the mind itself. We have become bodies. That we are souls we have forgotten entirely. When we think of ourselves, it is the body that comes into our imagination. We behave as bodies. We talk as bodies. We are all body. From this body, we have to separate the soul. Therefore, the training begins with the body itself until ultimately the spirit manifests itself. The central idea in all this training is to attain to that power of concentration, the power of meditation.